This is the 2024 Lincoln Nautilus. So the Nautilus is powered by a 2-liter 4-cylinder turbo, making 250 horsepower and 280 pound-feet of torque. So this 48-inch screen is controlled by this 11.1-inch screen here. So let's say if I didn't want to see music up there, I could change that to something like clock. Now, if I wanted to change this tire pressure gauge to maybe, let's see, I want my fuel economy there. Simple as that. And we have our weather over here, which I will leave, but you can change that too if you want to. Let's just, for the heck of it, we'll put our media over there. Now you can see what you're listening to over there. Now this is great for your passengers as well, because if they're sitting and they don't have anything to do, they're probably going to nag you. But if they have something to look at, they're fine. One of my favorite things about this car is that the user interface is actually built off of Android OS. So anything that you can do on Android, you can pretty much do in this car. Now, with exceptions. You can go to your Play Store here, you can download apps. Of course, you have to be signed in, and that is with any Android device. You do have to be signed in, have an account, and then you can download apps. The cool thing about Android OS is how versatile Android OS is. So if you wanted to play a game, you could plug in to a USB Type-C and you can connect your controller. So let's talk about the steering wheel. So on the left-hand side, you have your navigation for your cruise control. On the right-hand side, you have the navigation for your media. The cool thing about these buttons on the steering wheel is that they are touch sensitive. So if you wanted to skip a track, you could actually just hover over so you can see what you're doing, and then you could say, okay, skip track. Or if you wanted to turn the volume down, you can hover over and then click. I think they did this because if anything on here changes or if you're in a different menu, then you can use this then more than just a volume button or a track skip button. You have multiple options there. So one thing that I'm not too fond about is these vents. And a lot of cars are starting to do this where you can adjust where you want your vents to be via a touchscreen. Now let me tell you why I don't like this. It might just be on this car, but as I'm dragging this around, the vents do not change. They only change when you let go. So as you let go, then your vent will change and decide to move up or whatever it does. Now, same with this one over here, does the same thing. You have to let go of it for it to actually change its route. You can't just hold it down and feel what you might like. You actually have to be set in stone. Here you'll notice that we have a wireless charger. So if you have a phone, you can throw your phone in here and you'll notice that the charge begins to start. Now, if you're looking for your wireless charger and USB Type-C connections, those are going to be right here. You also have cup holders as well. Now, the cool thing about this little slidey door here is that it is actually really smooth. It kind of, well, I'd compare it to a ballpoint pen. You'll notice that you don't exactly have a gear shifter, you have a gear selector. So you'll be able to swap between park, reverse, neutral, and drive with a click of a button. Boop. Simple as that. Buttons like our auto stop starter here, we have our hazards here, and then we have our parking assist feature here. It does have driving modes, so if you're into spirited driving or just driving like a Prius maniac, then you can do that. With our drive modes here, we have something called conserve, which is going to be efficient driving. You have your excite, which is sporty, fun, and responsive. Notice how it doesn't say sporty, I kind of just put that in there, but it's responsive and engaging. Apparently. You have slippery, which is for your icy stuff and loose stuff. Yeah. Anyway, deep conditions, what's this? Heavy snow or sand assist. Okay, so if you're ever riding around doing crazy stuff, you can click that. Sweet. Okay, so let's say you wanted to swap your driving mode. Well, in theory, you would click this button here and you'd click it again and it would change your driving mode, or you'd like tap it up or bring it down, but this button is actually fixed. So the only way to change your driving mode is with your finger. So you actually have to touch the screen. So I don't know if you guys remember the older Mercedes cars that had a wood that rolled similar to this. I don't know if it was that smooth at the time, but I mean, this is pretty much the same thing, but the problem I had with the Mercedes is that some of that wood would eventually fall off and you'd have to replace it. So I'm pretty sure that this is pretty much the same thing and it's going to run into the same thing. but it's going to take a while for that to happen. So this is a Lincoln, which also means it's a Ford. So you're going to run into things that don't exactly feel that great. Now, everything that you touch is going to feel good. You have to touch this to access your cup holders. So obviously this is going to feel good. The button here to access your cup holders or your cubby space is going to feel good. But it's the things that you don't necessarily touch that you're going to notice some quality control issues. So this is a little piece of plastic, right? And you can push around this little piece of plastic and you'll start to hear cracks and squeaks. Now, that's not a bad thing, but you do notice it. So what I think Ford does is they do really well on the parts that you touch. Now, the parts that you don't touch so often, they can kind of skimp out on. This steering wheel feels amazing. This is a really good feeling steering wheel. So there's a lot of plastic in this car, so you'll definitely hear creaks if you look for them. You'll feel pieces that are also kind of loose. Compared to this one actually feels really good. This one is very loose. You can hear it here as well. You can definitely hear this creaking and when it's rattling. So the seats are insanely comfortable and you have a lot of room in the back. This car actually has the most back seat room in its class, at least in 2024. We have a singular button here to open the trunk if we want to. So in the back of the Nautilus, you'll find two USB Type-C ports on each seat. Okay, so setting off in the Nautilus Premier, one thing that I noticed is the steering is very light, like almost airy, very airy steering. Oh, is that a blind spot? Okay, so that's one thing. This pillar is a big problem for me. I am pretty tall, but I have long legs and a short torso. So this is a big blind spot. This is a big pillar. So that's not really good. And I really can't see over this screen. The hood is so big, I think I need to be all the way up. So that's better. But now my legs can touch the steering wheel, which is also not good. Yeah, so I did actually have to adjust my seat a little bit. I'm sitting like a grandma because that's the only way I can kind of drive in this car. I have to kind of sit up higher because I have a shorter torso, but I also have to have space for my legs. So it kind of makes it hard to drive certain cars. So this one is a car that I probably have a little bit of a hard time driving. Like my hands aren't supposed to be, I can almost touch the screen up here. That's not supposed to happen. So a little disappointing, just a little. Well, disappointing if I'd actually buy this car. I don't know if I'd do that, but it's comfortable. So being inside the 2024 Nautilus, it's very normal. Like it doesn't do anything very special. It's very comfortable, but I mean, that's about the extent of it. It's just very comfortable. Now the Nautilus has 250 horsepower and 280 pound-feet of torque, which you can actually feel. It's not a bad car when it comes to accelerating or anything like that. You're not going to win any races, obviously, but it's going to do good for getting you off the line or trying to avoid situations, which, I mean, that's respectable for a car like this. Big car, heavyweight, obviously, but I mean, it does good for what it's meant for.